Hey, Brajesh, how's it going?
Going well. How are you, Charles?
Listen, I always say every day that we're on this side of the earth is a good day, especially with COVID running around. So you ready?
Yes,
All right, let's
certainly.
get to it. So, Brajesh Jha, you are the global head of media and entertainment for Genpact, and I believe Genpact's doing about 4 billion in revenue, probably about 10 billion-ish market cap. But I want to key in on something. Your title is the global head for media and entertainment. And when you're looking at a company of that scale, and we're talking about being a global head, a lot of risk, a lot of responsibility goes into that. What's the process that you had to go through, internally when you're talking about building a world-class organization, business unit within the large umbrella of Genpact? And I'm looking at it from two ways. Internally with yourself, and then externally when you're building that team. How do you go about building the excellence that you provide?
Thank you, Charles. That's a great question, and I'm delighted to be speaking to the NAMIC audience here. It's a great panel, and I'm a big believer in promoting all kinds of minorities in leadership, whether in computing or elsewhere.
Appreciate that.
So to your question, I think leadership is a behavior in action. That's the way I see it. I just came out of our town hall. Our quarterly results came out 2 weeks ago, and I was delivering the town hall for a worldwide organization. And this vertical is essentially made up of all kinds of companies that are in the media content creation, distribution, consumption, and monetization, advertising, all of that. So it essentially means I have to have the kind of talent that can speak the language of that industry and the talent that is very, very confident in terms of driving the kind of digital transformation that Genpact is now known for. And for me, it comes down to number one, modeling the right kind of behavior, helping people understand that if I speak that language, if I take the time to get into the shoes of my clients, and if I take the time to understand what our service lines are building for our clients, and if I do it the right way, I'm modeling the behavior that I want my organization to have. And then it translates into painting a shared vision. Like in the town hall that I just came out of, I had to tell them this is our vision, this is where we are headed. And I might not always know how we get there. But as a leader, it is important for people to recognize this is the shared goal that we are going towards, and they have the necessary freedom to deploy all kind of innovation that they can to achieve that vision. So I think it comes down to giving people the right kind of freedom, giving them the right kind of vision, and then allowing them and bringing all kinds of capabilities to their doorsteps, removing the bottlenecks that might hinder their ability to get the most out of their own individual talents. I think that, in my view, is true leadership. And that's what I normally try to go for.
So if I pull Genpact away for a second so that we're not going specific to Genpact, what keeps you up at night when you have that level of responsibility? And how do you put risk mitigation to whatever that is?
Yeah, I'm a sound sleeper, so I'm going to tell you, there's not a lot of things that get in my way when I'm going to sleep. But I'm just joking. The gist of your question is what is critical? What should I be concerned about? And I think there is a famous statement that Andy Grove from Intel had made long time ago. Only the paranoids survive. And that is something I strongly believe in, that the moment we get comfortable, that's the end. That's when the decline happens. So we can never get into that state of comfort where we think that we are now in a position where we cannot be challenged, or that we are in a position that we can take our revenue for granted, or our cash flow for granted, or our margins for granted. That is never the case. So as a business leader, I have to look at my top line and the bottom line. I also have to look at the clients, their level of satisfaction, and I have to constantly ensure that we are innovating and we are giving our talent the right kind of care and feeding that is required. We are constantly bringing in very, very smart people into our talent pool. So the parts that I'm usually concerned about is, are we hitting all of those angles or not? Do we have a holistic view towards taking into account the customer angle, the financial angle, the operational angle, and the employee angle. If any of those are not handled properly, it means I have a weakness that I need to address. And I have usually tried to ensure that we have a risk mitigation plan for all of them.
Got it. So there's no, well, there wasn't at least initially a risk mitigation plan for COVID-19, right? Um, Especially with the Delta variant and what I'm hearing about the Lambda variant running wild.
Yes.
I know that there was a large impact to India that's still going on right now, and so that's definitely, I'm pretty sure, part of your offshore operations. But even if we looked on onshore, there have to be mental stress and potential team performance issues as people are going through it, and if not them directly, then their families. How do you manage through these types of crises?
Yeah, that's something that is very well said. No one could have predicted what happened around the world, and the world, the way we knew it, has changed forever. We don't know what the future is going to look like. Just when we think that things have stabilized, now people have vaccines and so on, here comes the Delta variant, and now you have no idea where we are headed. What you can do in a situation like this is, number one, do the best and bring the best tools that you have to your disposal to solve that crisis and to solve the problem at hand. And I'm very proud of the fact that Genpact is one of those organizations that has actually stood up in a big way in that space. We have large scale operations in China and in India, as well as in other parts of the world. And when COVID first hit China, we ensured that our operational readiness over there was honed, and it was stabilized and strengthened to a point where when it came to India, by then we were well prepared. We had contingent abilities to take care of work from home for, we have over 100,000 employees around the world, and we run very, very time sensitive and critical operations for our clients. So to ensure that all of that could be done from home, empowering our employees, giving them the right kind of connectivity, high speed internet, and associated infrastructure, all of that was something that we had to do on a industrial scale. And at the same time, we had to provide enough compassion for our people so that they could understand that you aren't going to be anywhere as effective as you are in office. And it requires a very considerate approach on the part of management, team members, their associated folks who are in different time zones. And this was well recognized. And we have partnered with Headspace for people to take care of themselves. We've had tons of programs, both virtual as well as local in nature, which allow for bonding among our team members. And then we have deployed artificial intelligence in starting what we call as a water cooler. And essentially what it does is that just like in an office setting, you run into people and without any planning, you go and talk to them, and that's how you create a bond. So we have a chat bot that goes out and figures out from your social connections who are the people that you normally interact with and who haven't you spoken to in a while. It will make a recommendation and tell you, here, I'm throwing in an appointment on your calendar. Go ahead and accept it. It's just a 15-minute chat with someone you haven't spoken to in a while. And how cool is that? You have no agenda, nothing. You just happen to speak to someone because they are part of your organization and you don't often speak to them, and you would have if you were walking the halls of your office. So we have selectively deployed technology to make it easier for us. We have also partnered, President Biden has given a bunch of companies, and Genpact is leading that in what we call as a Rapid Action Consortium. And we have made it possible for people to have rapid testing kit at a very subsidized rate, which people can take advantage of. And for organizations that sign up for it, they benefit from it, and they can have their employees walk into the office, whether they are vaccinated or not. They can take the test. It's an immediate result. And then it allows for people to get out of a certain situation where they have to have employees in office. It just becomes much easier. So our overall response has focused around ensuring that the businesses we are supporting of our clients those are handled properly. Our employees, their well-being and health is taken care of. And third is keeping on track with whatever benefits technology can provide to us. We must take full advantage of that.
You touched on a few of the questions that I was going to ask, so thank you. But let me circle back on one. When you start looking at that work from home, work from anywhere concept, that changes the landscape of recruitment and retention. Couple that with the advancements that you talked about. I mean, bandwidth had to, I don't even know how many years of bandwidth we've had to pull forward, and other technological issues that had to be addressed to allow for enterprise on a country, albeit even a world scale, to adapt. But here I'm local to Atlanta, and I'm starting to see, different shifts and different changes that are taking place. And I just read an article a couple of days ago that talked about a demographic is, between I think it was like 22 and 32, where they were looking at companies now and sort of voting with their feet that said, hey, if you don't allow for X, Y, Z, some of it being work from home or work from anywhere or other types of privileges, they're moving on to what they would assume to be greener pastures. How are you addressing that recruitment retention in this work from anywhere environment? And once again, you touched on a lot of my technology-based questions, so I'm going to leave that to the side. But when we look at that recruitment retention, does your strategy change at all?
Yes, that's an excellent question, and I covered the technology piece because that's I'm always passionate about how technology can come to solving human problems. But coming back to your question in terms of retention and recruitment and so on, it's a very fascinating area. I will tell you, frankly, I have been managing people for well over 2 decades. In fact, my first team, I used to live in New Hampshire back then, was in early 2000 and maybe late 90s. And I had team members some were in Europe, some in Atlanta, some in Orlando, some in Boston, and they looked very different from each other. So I'm used to working with a remote workforce. And something that always struck me is that you can form a bond with people and you can inspire them to enjoy what they are doing, and then distance and differences don't matter at all.
Yeah.
People will go out of their way if they are given the right kind of attention and appreciation for all the passion with which they are trying to do something. And it has held good regardless of the situation, regardless of the compensation issues involved, regardless of the type of activity. If my people received the right kind of guidance, they were given the freedom to maximize the contribution that their talent can make, and then they were given the right kind of recognition for doing it. It was unbelievable, the kind of retention that we could achieve. And I've been very proud of this, that in no matter which organization I've managed, it has always been 90+% of retention rate in that organization. So in these COVID times, what has happened is that my friends at McKinsey, they came out with a report. They call it a hybrid work continuum. So on the one extreme, you've got organizations that have made it absolutely mandatory. You have to be in office, and there is no other way out. You go get your vaccine, whatever else, but you be in the office. And the other extreme is where they are saying, why bother with any office? Just work from home forever. We believe that you have to be more deliberate than that. You have to put in some more thought in terms of what kind of activities benefit from collaboration, what kind of activities require an employee to have the flexibility. Certain employees, young mothers, for instance, for them being at home doesn't mean that their effectiveness is any lesser. It just means that the amount of stress that they would otherwise have to deal with as they care for a child, it would become a lot easier for them if they're able to take care of that while not affecting or wasting their time in commute. So I think that if you take a more deliberate strategy in terms of looking for the right kind of opportunities to bring people together in an office setting, while at the same time giving them the flexibility or the benefits of what they have enjoyed during these COVID times and discovered the kind of things they can do remotely, which otherwise was not possible. we take advantage of all these learnings, and we put together a out of office model where you are in office for select activities, for select occasions, and you also enjoy the flexibility of being at home when you need to. So I think it's a balancing act. No one has a perfect answer for it, but we certainly are doing our best to ensure that we take advantages of both technology, flexibility, and keeping in mind the business criticalities along with what the employees need.
Uh, when I look at some of the aspects of your bio, one thing that sort of reached out to me was the fact that you're an executive coach. I think you're certified as an executive coach, if I saw correctly. What made you get into that? I mean, I can see it from different angles, but I would want to hear it from you because I'm looking at it and saying, okay, you are in a a capacity where you are leading leaders, and by default, if you're an executive coach, you can help coach them. You could also coach up. You could do a lot of things with that. But is it a passion that's driving you with it in terms of learning and teaching? What help me out with that aspect, because executive coaching by default is teaching, is coaching, is giving back.
Thank you, Charles. That's a fantastic question. And actually, the last sentence that you said, giving back, that is very core to who I am. And I'll tell you, in my corporate career of now almost 3 decades, I have had the joy of working with some phenomenal people. And in these years, what I discovered is that while technology was in my DNA, technology is what I was good at. I also enjoyed working with people and mentoring them, and taking them from point A to point B is something that gives me immense joy. And as the years went by, and the engineers that I had hired way back in late 90s, and I was able to take them all the way to senior directors, and after many promotions, I got a sense of joy every time I would see how well they all have progressed, and whatever little contribution I had made in their careers, I felt that there's a lot of learning I have acquired through this. And if I add some theoretical foundations to it, which is a proper certified way of coaching others, I could give a lot more to the society at large. And so I went ahead, got certified, and I've been doing voluntary coaching for people for many, many years now. There's an organization in the Bay Area called torch.io through which I provide a lot of the coaching, but it's also through a lot of informal networks. And the whole idea behind is the more I give back, the more joy it is for me. And if I can make a difference in people's lives, there's nothing better than that.
That's interesting on two levels. The first one is we were at a networking event, or virtual networking event, yesterday, in fact. And in that conversation, a person who's new to corporate America, just getting out of college, had asked, when you do these different activities and you're doing these volunteer organizations, what's the give back? What do you feel? And I can't say it any better than you did. And I too, when you go back almost 2.5 decades of leading people, you have a different perspective, right? A person asking that question who's in year 1, year 2 out of school, they can't see it because they're effectively a 2-year-old in the business, and not that 25-year-old or a little bit older than that, I guess, in the business is that much, is old, but it does provide you a lens of perspective when you're looking back that says, I've watched individuals go from here to here to here, and whatever you were able to add to their legacy, to their journey, with something that it's not a financial situation. It's something where it sort of grows in your heart, right? Because you also then look and see who they mentored and sponsored, and now you start to say the impact that you had is a lot bigger than just a person here, a person there. It spans a much, larger breadth.
The whole concept of paying it forward. I have benefited from mentors all my life, so that's all that I've been doing now.
Now the second part, I am part of NAMIC, And so when you're talking about having coaching sessions, we'll have a side conversation on how NAMIC Nashville or NAMIC Atlanta could potentially be a partner with you on that, or you could be a partner with them on that. Because there's all types of programs that they have that I'm pretty sure we could benefit from with your level of expertise and knowledge. I want to get you out of here on one last conversation point. You just recently did a talk with a few industry experts around the convergence of media and technology, and just wanted to get a sense of what that meant to you and some of the nuggets of wisdom that you shared with the audience.
Yeah, that was a fascinating session. It was with Reuters had arranged it, and we had participants from the world of media, all of them that are breathing this, and we are in the advisory and consulting side of it, services side of it. So we get to see, we have a ringside view of what's going on in that arena. And I think that technology and media have converged forever. I think it's only a matter of time that you won't be able to separate the two. The key things to recognize is that while digitization and a lot of the transformations that we are seeing today had already started, but what COVID did is that it just accelerated a whole bunch of trends. So yes, people were talking about streaming their content to different devices, but all of a sudden that became the predominant way through which people were consuming content. And what that ensured that suddenly you have to look at the industries and you have to look at which industry needs to be seen in the light of a provider of technology to becoming an enabler of technology, and which one is now on the receiving end. So in essence, what that has done is all kinds of forces have started. Telecom world is starting to think, should we keep media assets on our books or should we spin them off? And the media companies are thinking, without technology, how am I supposed to know what my audience wants to see? How do I decide where I'm going to invest in a certain type of content? And how do I decide if I did invest in it over the next 5 years, what kind of audience is going to consume that content? And therefore, what kind of advertisers am I going to be attracting? So whether you talk about advertising agencies or you talk about content creation companies or the companies that are in the distribution space, cable companies, or you talk about the brands who have to decide where they spend all their money to get the most out of their advertising budget. And companies that were in the old world of maintaining or offering data warehouses, all that is gone. Now you've got customer data platforms and new technologies which are absolutely crucial for organizations to get the most out of their investments, as well as to reach the maximum number of audience and to have sticky audience, which is the essence of the hour for most of these media companies.
You know, this year we had with NAMIC Atlanta, we have annually a Trends in Technology, which you've been a part of. In fact, you were in our inaugural Trends in Technology. Thank you. And we had a CEO from one of the TV companies. He's like, and I wish we could do more think tank, more ideation sessions. And we were fortunate enough in that same session to have an individual from Genpact, Sanjay, who was able to sort of figure that, it was a spark, like, listen, we can have that conversation. And I think that you're right, that convergence between media and technology is there forever, because I believe that you now see media companies understanding that with that technology ideation, implementation, feedback loop that allows for additional innovation, great things can occur, right? And so, that bodes well for your company and the industry in a whole, because now you know that you can have AI and other technologies add, present and future value to these companies in the way they do their programming, streamline. Hey, you just talked about a bot that lets me know when I haven't talked to a colleague, a friend, a family member, if you want to go down to that point, and so there are use cases for all of these items that, once ideated with the right individuals, it brings forth a wide range of new innovation. So Brajesh, I really thank you for your time. Once again, from NAMIC Atlanta, I thank you for your participation because, being in conversations like these, it allows for that audience, our audience, the NAMIC and the, other audience at large, to hear leaders, to hear innovation, to hear it from marketing, technology, etc., and sort of feel comfortable with what they're listening to, understanding that we don't know all the answers, but there are people out here who are willing to share their thoughts, their ideas, their experiences, their wisdom with the audience at large. And so we appreciate you for that.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you for all the good work you are doing, bringing the community together. And thank you for the opportunity. I've enjoyed this interaction, and I hope it benefits the listeners. And let's keep NAMIC going forward and expanding and doing great work as always.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good one.